You've seen me in Tokyo, Athens, New York, Toronto, Paris, Bilbao, Krakow, Athens, Stockholm, but I'm not rich, I don't work remotely, and I don't have a secret trust fund. And I'm going to tell you how I do it. Yeah, when you see how often I travel and some of the places, I'm not being funny, Tokyo and New York, they're most people's bucket list. You're assuming that I either work remotely, I'm absolutely minted, or my credit cards are bursting at the seams. The truth, I work a regular job, I live in the UK, and my expenses are the same as everybody else. In fact, mine are slightly higher because I live away from home during the week. I just plan smarter. I usually aim to spend under £120 a person for a 3-night European break. That's around €140 or $150. I've even done Canada and New York for a week, including flights, for $350, which is €410 or $440. And my 2-week trip to Tokyo was £1,100, and that was a package with British Airways, decent hotel, decent baggage allowance, the whole shebang, which comes in at €1,280 or $1,370. Obviously, you're only going to get those prices if you fly from the UK, but anywhere in Europe similar, flying from the States slightly more. And here's the main reason I have to do it on the cheap. I'm usually paying for some blood-sucking somebody else. For example, one of my kids, both my kids, or in the case of Athens, my mother. That budget has to stretch twice as far, and a lot of people think what I'm spending in total for 2 people is what I'm actually spending per person. I'm not rich, I'm just careful. I use tools, I hunt deals, and most importantly, I research. Research is everything, but making a note of your research. Get yourself a pen and paper if you want to save money. If you don't mind splashing a bit, get a notebook. Let me show you how. And if you stay to the end, I will run through something I actually found today that I think will blow you away. Here's the first secret. Timing is everything. I rarely book flights solely based on when I want to go. I book when it's cheap to go. Midweek flight, half the price. Shifting by just 1 day can save you £60-70 or more. And these aren't all random off-season trips either. Paris, that was during the UK school holiday in August, peak time. However, for some reason, Paris isn't that busy in August. Most of the Parisians choose that time to go on their holidays. Krakow, we went during February half term. That's a peak time, especially for people looking to get away from the bleak British winter. Even though it's cold in Krakow, it's still getting out of the UK in the winter. Toronto and New York, that was during the May half term. I will admit we did leave a day early, and that particular year the Welsh half term was out of sync with the rest of the UK. However, that can sometimes work the opposite way as well. I don't avoid holidays, I just plan smarter. I use Google Flights, Skyscanner, even Jack's Flight Club, but also the airlines themselves. Wizz Air are always cheap. And I search differently. Instead of Rome in July, I search anywhere, cheapest month. You just got to learn to play with it and what works for you. The map function in Google Maps is quite good. The magic of budget travel starts before you even click book. My next trip is travel light and book smart. I haven't checked a bag in almost 3 years now, other than long haul. So you get no baggage fees, no standing at carousels, and definitely no dragging a suitcase through a crowded baggage hall or cobbled streets at 2 a.m. And this is the bad boy I always take with me. It cost me £12 on Amazon. It's made by Norway. This thing has been on every trip, even the ones with the big baggage allowance. It folds into this pocket here, and it is a good size. 12 quid, so even my baggage purchase is a budget. You can get it in more imaginative colours. Suin's got one with elephants on it, the wife's got one with flamingos on it. On all my European trips, that is the only luggage I've taken. Might have taken a coat with some fairly stuffed pockets, but everything goes in there. And bear in mind, I take cameras and an iPad. It's a little bit different for Suin because she likes to take a bit of makeup. That's what her pockets are for. And she pinches a bit of space in my Norway bag. I do wear my heaviest stuff to go on the flight. So in other words, if I'm going somewhere warm but I want some jeans as well, I'll wear the jeans, might wear a jumper, might wear a shirt, and obviously a coat. Sometimes I don't even use the coat, but the coat's like an extra bag with the pockets. Bingo. For Canada and New York, we both took similar sized bags and we paid for one overhead. I regretted it, it cost too much, but we were going for a week. Do I look like a fashion blogger? No. Do I save 80 quid on baggage allowance? Absolutely. Do I blow 100 quid on a fancy bag that I then have to pay to check? No way. In fact, no way. But smart travel isn't just the bag, it's booking too. Cheap flight isn't always cheap once you add luggage, seat fees and check-in chaos. For example, a £10 flight can become £60, £70 by the time you've paid to select a seat and put a bag on it. So always check what's included, and sometimes, for example, British Airways, even on their short haul, are a little bit more generous. You get a personal item that goes under your seat and an item of hand luggage. Book is going to Canada in June and they've got more than enough luggage space. Might ask them to bring me back some duty free. And the same goes if you're going longer haul. A package sometimes works out well. For example, with Tokyo, we were allowed two 23 kilogram suitcases each. God knows how we'd have got them anywhere. A overhead bag and a personal item. We're not crazy. We took one suitcase, one personal item, and I think we took a spare small rucksack. We were well within the limit. However, you'd bought that as separates, you would have paid for the baggage. And let's face it, if you're going for 2 weeks, you do want a bit of space. But with Tokyo, you need that space for bringing stuff back. Budget travel's great, but only if you're getting what you actually pay for or what you actually need. Let's talk places to stay, because accommodation can often make or break your budget. If you get it wrong, you'll pay a fortune, but it can also make or break your holiday. There is no point staying in a DOS house unless you're prepared to stay in a DOS house. But here's the one thing, for Europe I rarely spend more than £40, $50, €50 a night, and I'm still in decent clean hotels with the location. Location is everything, especially when you're only going for a short break. Take Athens. The first time I went with Book and we stayed in the Hotel Pergamos, which was in Ammonia, which unfortunately isn't famed for being the nicest part of Athens. We actually had to walk through a red light district. However, we were close to the main metro station and it wasn't bad. Books are streetwise early 20s. I've travelled the world and I've seen worse. It wasn't bad at all. There was a really nice takeaway nearby, a restaurant nearby, and the hotel was clean. That was the main thing. But more importantly, the location worked. I've seen that one down as low as £20 a night. I mean, you're close to the action, sometimes closer to some action than you'd like to be, but 20 quid a night. You can go even cheaper if you're willing to stay in a hostel, but the one thing in a lot of cities is the location. When I went back to Athens with Mum, I found a slightly nicer hotel a little bit further out. It was the other side of Ammonia, but the criteria for me there was Mum's not overly mobile. We needed to be right next to a train station, which we were, and we had a balcony because Mum likes a cheeky fag. Again, that one kicked in at just over £30 a night. Boom. We could have had much nicer and stayed in Syntagma Square. You're talking £100 a night for a similar size room with a posh doorman. Do you really need a posh doorman if you're only going for a weekend? Probably not. But if that's what you want, go for it. Now this is where Google Maps really kicks in. You need to know how are you going to get there from the airport and how are you going to get from there to the things you want to do. The crazy thing was, we booked a long 15-hour coach trip and the pickup for that coach trip was next to our hotel. The people that were staying in the £150 a night places were getting up an hour before us to go on the same trip. Sometimes cheapest, it really is best. But another important thing is to scroll the reviews and learn how to read reviews. I would say half the bad ones are people who didn't get the upgrade they wanted or thought they were getting 5-star when they were paying 2-star budget. If there's a few good ones recently, because that's the other thing, is the place can go downhill, and the good ones are in the majority. Ignore a lot of the bad ones, unless they're really bad, they're talking multiple complaints of staff stealing and that sort of thing. And the beauty with TripAdvisor, people who are hacked off will always show their worst pictures. I'll be honest, some of the worst pictures are nicer than some of the worst places I've stayed. You've got to pay, you pay your money and you take your choice. But I've been just as unhappy in a £100 a night hotel as I have in a £20 a night hotel. But you can do a lot to make yourself happy with the 80 quid difference. But I'm not suggesting you stay in death traps or rat-infested hellholes. I haven't yet, but I just haven't spent big bucks. Go for something that's slightly less modernised but still in great condition, as opposed to something that's all marble and that'll be falling apart in 4 years as well. The only exception was when I went to Tokyo. The best located hotels had small rooms. I was travelling with my child. We wanted a twin room, which isn't that common in Tokyo, so we downgraded to a business grade hotel, and I think we got a better hotel than a lot of the ones in Shinjuku, and it wasn't a bad price. I think the hotel worked out as about £50 a night, which for Tokyo is a steal. It was still well located. We were next door to Ryogoko train station, and we were walking distance from Asakusa. So to sum up, for a break, if it's less than £40 a night, the location works and it's clean, it's a 10 from me. Next up, it's the little things. This is where budget travel goes from bare minimum to actually brilliant. I don't just save big, I save small, but I save small over and over again. For example, a Pinchos tour in Bilbao, you're combining drinking and eating and getting a bit of exercise. £20, €25, $26. Bilbao also has the Barrick card, which is one of the cheapest ways to charge up a card because the public transport system there is so unbelievably cheap. A lot of journeys work out as about 50 cents, including something that you would normally consider touristy, like the bridge and the funicular. A 3-course meal in Sofia, you can hit them for under £10. Go 2 streets back from where it looks trendy. That 500 yen, which is about £3.50, tempura set meal in Tokyo still lives rent free in my head. I've just been out tonight. I have just paid for a similar meal £16 in Birmingham, and it wasn't as good. And don't overlook transport passes. They're not always a great deal, but in most cities they are, or at least it puts a cap on what you're going to spend. For example, in Stockholm, you can get all around the city for 72 hours for £20. And that includes your airport transfers. Very seldom does the most popular way of getting from the airport work out the cheapest. For example, in Stockholm, the Arlanda Express is amazing, it's about £20 a head. It's fine if you're on your own, bit of luxury, save you 15 minutes on getting into the city. When you're paying for 2 freeloaders, I mean children, you're better to get on a Flixbus. It takes 10 minutes longer, but it's only £4. Boom. In Dublin, the Leap card, £7, covers all your transport for 24 hours. You get on the airport, the official ferry bus from the ferries terminal, that's £8. You've only got to use a bus, well, you don't have to use a bus at all. You're already in front by the time you get into the city. The other thing is, look for your bank, your travel packs, or deals with your credit card. I use Barclays, and this is not sponsored, I subscribe to their travel pack. I get 6 free airport lounge visits a year. If you're paying for them out your own pocket, that's £40. I get my RAC cover, including Europe, and I get multi-trip travel insurance for the whole year, for anywhere in the world, for me and any dependent children or children under 21 that are travelling with me and my wife. The only thing it doesn't cover is my mum, because she's over 70. She's actually 15 years over 70. Yeah, we had to stump up for that. None of these are flashy, but they all add up. For example, yes, eating out's nice. However, in Japan, the mini mart, the konbinis, the meals there are amazing and they're pennies. In Greece, I think it's law there. They can't seem to charge more than £5 for a gyros. A gyros is like a kebab with chips inside. It's unbelievable. Even in a restaurant, you'll get a gyros for about £7. Boom, that's nothing. That's less than a Big Mac meal. There was one night in Greece, me and Buck were back late, so we just couldn't be bothered to look for a restaurant. We got 2 gyros, 2 cans of pop, and 2 bottles of water for our trip in the morning for €8. That's about £6.50 for a meal for 2. Sometimes staying in the shitty area pays off. And I think the biggest thing I've learned that you can take as a tip, or just listen, is I stopped treating travel as a luxury and started treating it as a habit. It's something that I really enjoy doing. I think it broadens the mind. My kids are 21 and coming up on 18. We're in those twilight years of them actually wanting to come on holiday with their dad, and I don't think I did enough of it when we were young. That's why I want it to become a habit. Book is an art student. I've taken them to MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art in New York. They've been to the National Gallery of Bulgaria. More interesting than you think. They've seen some of their favourite art pieces in Tokyo. Now, how does that complement an art degree? You're giving them an investment in travel. I build my year around it. I skip impulse buys, I keep a notebook of prices and flight alerts, and I plan way ahead. For example, if you look at British Airways, they release their prices 355 days in advance for their packages, and they often start them off at a low level, sell the first few seats, see how it's going before you do your pricing. Some of the more obscure airlines like Air China, 3 months in advance is a sweet spot there. You've got to It's like anything in life, you've got to learn about it to be able to do it. Wizz Air, about 3 months of the sweet spot. And with EasyJet, you have to keep an eye on when they're releasing their flights, but that's usually, I think they do it 3 times a year. But for some reason, I don't seem to fly EasyJet very much. For example, for the kids this year, as a Christmas gift, I bought a trip to Stockholm to go to the ABBA Museum and stay in Jumbo Stay. So glad we did. It doesn't exist anymore. It went bust a couple of weeks ago. They can tell their mates they have stayed in a converted 747. It's quirky, it's different, and they've done it. They've been to the ABBA Museum. They've danced in the subways under the amazing subway art. They've also had meatballs made from bears. Where else can you do that? Bucks managed to go within 3 months of passing their driving test. They had an international driving licence and they were racing a Mario Kart through the streets of Tokyo. Once in a lifetime experience before they're even 21. For Mum, for Christmas, I bought her a trip to Athens. We hadn't been on holiday with her for ages. It didn't cost me a fortune. I think it was £96 each. And I took my mum to another country when it was warm in March. Not only that, I got to spend 3 quality days with my mother. Don't forget, I live away from home during the week. Don't see her as much as I should. And I should invest in putting time in. She's going to cherish that. She told everyone when we were there, "This is my Christmas present for my son." And she loved it. It's all about memories and investment in spending quality time with the people you care about. This isn't about being rich. It's about dragging the most out of life as you can. And it doesn't have to cost a fortune. Don't forget, I've just said Stockholm was £70 each. I've just been for dinner with Buck. We spent nearly £40. Don't get me wrong, it was worth it. 2 dinners with your child is the same as taking them away. What gives you more value? I spent 2 hours with, it wasn't even 2 hours, it was probably an hour and a half, including the time walking from Buck's place to the restaurant and back. Now, isn't 72 hours of quality time more valuable? You don't need to wait for the perfect moment or go big budget. You just need a plan and a bit of nerve. And don't discount holidays in the UK. Expedia is an amazing tool. You can find a hotel instead of staying in central London, stay in Shoreditch. You can still get to central London very quickly. I've seen hotels there. More a cross between a part hotel and Airbnb for a family for about £60 a night. Book went down there for a Comic Con. Got a mediocre, and I mean mediocre hotel, still had their own room, still had a private bathroom, £26 a night, and that was in the summer. Now surely the experiences I've talked about are better than putting £200 a month away to go to Spain for a fortnight all-inclusive. Don't get me wrong, if you enjoy a fortnight in Spain all-inclusive, do it. But I think getting as many places in as you can across the year is much better. Let's just take a look at the last 12 months for me. Athens twice, Krakow, Bilbao, Paris, Sofia, Tokyo, New York. You add all that up together, I have spent less than £2,000 a head. And look at the holidays I've had. So to recap, no, I'm not rich, but I travel more than most because I make it a priority, or as I said earlier, a habit. I go when flights are cheap, I travel light. I pick smart hotels, I don't waste money on fluff. I grab the little savings that save up and stack up into something amazing. And that's the real key for me, is if you can save, for example, instead of having a soft drink with every meal, ask for a glass of water. You're saving £3 per person per meal. Across 2 meals a day, that is 3, 6, 9, £12 a day. I know it's minor, but that's an extra £12. That would cover your travel pass, that might cover lunch the next day, it might cover entry into an attraction. But you adapt that attitude to everything without coming across as tight. The kids want an ice cream, buy them a bloody ice cream with the 12 quid you save by drinking water instead of Coke. Simples. And I'm not doing anything that any one of you can't do. I've just figured out how to make it work. And if you've stuck around, I said I'd show you an amazing deal I found this morning. I was sitting in the coffee place. I was only drinking normal coffee, they were drinking cappuccino. I'm still saving a quid for my next holiday. I found 5 nights in Marrakesh in June, flights and hotel for round about 120 a person. That's in June. Just so happens that Suin finishes college 20th of June. Weather's amazing then. There's a bit of a sweet spot before the prices go up, before the kids break up for the summer. Bingo, you're going in the summer, but you're paying winter in Blackpool prices. And this is what budget travel really looks like, and it's better than you think. Don't get me wrong, there are going to be things, if you want to do a safari in Kenya, that's going to cost. Do a safari in Kenya if that's important to you. We'll see you soon, and there'll be another video very soon. Thanks for watching.